If Rocky were to have sexual relations with one of his enemies, which one would he choose first? I mean, which one do you think it would be?
Gotta be Apollo.
Why Apollo?
He had that kind of star-crossed lover look when he was talking about him on TV when they first showed him in the first one. You can imagine that would be like, "It's being you. This is just work. It's absolutely." And I don't know what happened.
All right. Well, Drago, of course. Wouldn't it be a love-hate relationship with Drago?
Yeah, but I can't see him like wanting that. I can see Drago being kind of forceful about it. You grab my arm, we do this.
Hello there. The VCR is keyed up. The pizza is on its way. But until it gets here, come sit with us by the movie light. I'm Dr. Crisis. I'm joined by my good friend, Mr. Dust.
Hello.
And along with...
Hello, Lance. I'm Melmut.
All right. Margaret is here with us as well. So, this is a podcast for movie lovers, which we all are and always have been.
Yeah.
So I'd ask first, Meshmouth.
Yes.
Yeah. I'd first ask him, why do you love movies?
As a kid, I was really like, I don't know, if empathic is the word, but like it was like an amusement park, going to all these different places and different stories. And as I got older, it was that with the awareness of more of the storylines and the character arcs and everything like that. So it as I got older, I enjoyed them even more. It wasn't like I don't watch them anymore that I'm older. It's being aware of everything and seeing a vision realized. It's just it's ecstasy.
Very good. How about you, Mr. Dust?
I really liked escaping into them. For me, as I got older, it just became more and more interesting to what went into them, whose idea it was, who was responsible for this, responsible for that, following directors and how they're it changes from movie to movie. I find it in just never-endingly interesting. Yeah.
For me, the best I can say about it, there's something ancient and deep about them. That's just those two, I guess, would be the adjectives. Ancient, kind of, there's a depth and an ancientness to them. So, having said that, today we'll be talking about Rocky. All three of us are Philly boys from the hard Philly streets, and I mean the hard Philly streets. So I think that would be a proper place to start. I think we'll go from worst to best. Of course, we talked about...
and these are the original 6 films.
The original 6 films, right? We all know what the best is, which is part of the problem with this list.
Yeah.
Right. The best, of course, is the original Rocky. It's one of the greatest movies ever made. Once we can talk about why that's one of the greatest movies ever made and the little things that were done. But that's another thing we can get into. Of course, we'll get into what makes great movies and the larger and smaller things of all that. We'll get into all that to the best of our ridiculous knowledge. So, culture of Rocky, like I said, I was talking about, we talk about often, actually, about what Rocky did to us when we were kids. Like,
oh, God. Of course, not the first one when we were kids, because that was a strange, boring movie.
Yeah.
Watching Mr. T, who was an absolute monster, fight Rocky, or Rocky curing communism and everything with the giant Russian people. It's like any moment in the movie that didn't have action, you were doing it yourself. It's like we just watched the fight, so you jump up and you're like, in this part, and and then you lose your mind and you're jumping off the couch and you're running down in your own world. So yeah, I mean, absolute drugs for 3 and 4, unbelievable.
Yeah, and from what I understand, there's been multiple people with that exact reaction when they were children or their children when watched them. I mean,
really?
You talk to them, their children get hyped up on Rocky after watching, especially if the fourth one.
So he's touching something feral there, something, you know what I mean? Something
Absolutely.
true,
I'd heard, I don't know how true this is, but I actually heard this, that the weightlifting was not a thing until Rocky came out. that American males did not weightlift on the level that became it became a normal thing when
Yeah.
we were growing up,
Yeah.
especially where we grew up. If you weren't weightlifting, there was, what are you doing? Why aren't you lifting weights? That was just something you did to exercise as a man. From what I understand, that was not a thing. That was not something that a lot of people were into, even exercising to the level of running and pushing yourself to the limits. Now, I don't know how accurate that is. It's just something I heard. So that'd be an interesting thing to look up. Okay, so let's start with the rankings.
Okay.
Why don't I'll go first because
It's controversial?
slightly, yes, because it's controversial. Okay, so we had a bit of a technical difficulty there. You probably didn't know it, but we know it. But just in case you did know it, we had to address it. Okay, there we go.
OCD.
Wait, yeah, that is. So it is slightly controversial because if I were to ask you, what was the worst Rocky, well, your answer would be the answer of most people's, which is
Rocky 5.
right, which I understand. I understand why people would say that was it. But I am proposing that the worst one was Rocky 2. And I explain why. Yeah. And I would say unequivocally, like I stand by this. It is the worst of the Rockies.
Okay. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is it the worst in relation to the first one, or worst as a film?
That's a great question.
Yes, it is.
I think it's both. I think it's both. I think the major sins of the movie are in relation to the first one. No, Frankenstein is just okay. He just passes by. Sometimes he just wants to say things. So I'll start with that. That's a good question because I'll start with the fact that it is a ludicrous remake of the first one. That's what it is. It's a ridiculous remake of the first one, where nothing is realistic, where it is sequelitis is dripping from the movie to the point where they have the characters doing things that are diagnosably insane to try and harken back to the original. For example, let's start with the most ridiculous part, which is that he won in the end.
Right.
Now, Apollo Creed had something to prove in this one, right? The whole first one is based off of the idea that Apollo Creed wasn't really training for the fight. Is that right?
Yes.
Right. This one, he had something to prove. The heavyweight champion of the world, the way they hyped him up, the greatest heavyweight of all time, had something to prove against Rocky Balboa. Right? Watch the first one, and you'll know what that means. The Italian Stallion, right? So that's of course the most ludicrous part of it. That Rocky wins in the end. But then there's the sequelitis issues. Which is, the guy in the beginning when he says, "I'll just call you," and he says, "I'll just go, hey, yo." Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember that in the first one? That was charming.
Yeah.
Where, Adrian says, he's call Rocky, and he,
Yeah.
right, he opens
That was
window and
great.
says, yeah, that was charming, right? He's, this is just something he did on the moment. In the second one, having him do it to that guy and this lawyer in the outside the hospital makes it seem like Rocky has a catchphrase, like he's a cartoon, right? I mean, so that's the first. Oh, and they repeatedly harken back to things like that throughout the movie. So that's that. There's also, if you watch 70s movies from the time, they were the really bad ones are trying to be gritty because that's what was so big at the time. Godfather was one of the biggest ones, and Martin Scorsese got big at that time. And the first one is actually an incredibly gritty movie. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But when you watch the ones that were trying to be gritty, that had no ability to be gritty and no insight, no inspiration, they were just dreadfully boring, right? And that's what we were watching with that. When you go back and watch it, it's an incredibly boring movie. It's melodramatic. That's the difference, right? When drama is based off of, when something's actually dramatic, there's actual stakes that you understand at play,
Yeah.
right? That something's melodramatic when you don't even understand what the stakes are. The stakes seem ludicrous, right? And so that's when you move into melodrama, and that's what the movie was. It was he learns to read by reading to his his comatose wife after they had their child. This is something that belongs in a soap opera, not in a Rocky movie, not in a movie that claims to be hardcore in any way.
Right.
So that's what it's a boring movie. The second thing that I noticed is it's when he started to fight for the wrong reasons for the first time. When you watch the first one, he fought for his human dignity. Is basically what he was fighting for. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. What everyone wants is their voice to be heard, even in the smallest way. They want to know they exist. In the second one is when they start to pull on what became the macho feeling of the 80s, which I'm not judging that one way or the other, but in that movie, when he's trying to be gritty, it had a very strange feeling to it. So, he's fighting because Apollo Creed's trying to humiliate him. He could lose his eye, he could get killed, his wife doesn't want him to do it, but why is he doing it? Right? They throw in this thing that he needs a job, but it seemed like throw in to me. Right, I'm making a claim for myself. I'm not saying this is an absolute fact because that can be right. Because I don't know what Stallone was thinking when he wrote the damn thing.
Yeah.
And I mean that on lots of levels. I don't know what he was thinking when he wrote the damn thing. But so when you think about that, and you think about he's looking at that paper. We all remember the scene where he's looking at the paper, and he's chicken. What is it? Italian chicken?
Yeah.
Is that
He's looking at the flyer that they put out to try and draw him out. Yeah.
Right. It starts to become about his ego. Where it starts to move into, instead of about pride, it becomes ego, which are two different things, right? So those are the major reasons, and I'll give you, I'm trying to think of a small example of, like in the first one, it was very charming, and it showed where his character was going when he came home with the meat. You remember this?
Yes.
Right. And he gave it to her and just told her to cook it, and he wasn't being very supportive or understanding the way she was feeling. And then they had that wonderful close-up of just him thinking and realizing what kind of person did he want to be, what kind of husband did he want to be. And he's making that decision right then and there. They didn't have those moments in the movie. Again, drama versus melodrama. They just had just wild, ridiculous behavior. The only one I felt that was living in the real world anymore was Adrian's character, and that, of course, the incongruence of that and everybody else being it was very strange.
Yeah.
So that's basically the biggest reason why I would say that, yeah, it was the worst movie.
Yeah.
And it's a disgrace to it's a direct, terrible remake of the first one. That's how I'll sum it up.
Yeah.
So what do you got, Chris?
All right. Mr. Dust.
I apologize.
I go by. I don't know what this Chris thing is with you. For me, the strange thing is, and I find that when we're having these discussions, when Dr. Crisis and I have these discussions, that I can't disagree with what you said. For me, it always came down to performance. Some of the finest performances in the movie that you just did not get out of the fifth one. The scene where he goes to see Mick and asks if he could stay in boxing is still to this day will bring a tear to your eye. When she says to Paulie, I love him, you don't.
Yeah.
And then, and again, it led to, I agree, soap opera, and then she's in a coma. And the fact that Rocky trained less in this one and won, that was another serious problem. He trained less.
That's my point.
Exactly. No,
Yeah.
to make your point,
Yeah.
damn it.
And
But for me, you had lines in the fifth one that at least you had a father, Tommy. Ooh, and he was talking about
which, by the way, he spoke about his father in the first one.
Rocky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you say? I don't remember.
He said, my father always told me I don't have much of a brain, so I got to use my body. So why is he indicating the fifth one he didn't know his father?
Yeah, so that
Or is
didn't
he
make
just
any sense.
saying, hey, we all have abusive father? I don't know what that was.
Guess, or his father took off on him later, which he didn't really, the only
Right.
performance that was anything in the fifth one was actually Tommy Morrison,
No, he was
which I thought he was intense.
He's actually wonderful.
Yeah. And for me, that's where, as far as watchability, if you get, like with the other Rockies, if you get into, again, it is boring and it is melodramatic, but there are those moments where you're still like, these people are still putting in performances. For me, it comes down to it's weird that it comes down to that over the fifth one, where you got nothing. They were all bad. They all looked scary. Rocky was oh my god, the scene where he's in the gym and he's drunk and he's seeing Mick, who's obviously in the throes of dementia. Poor Burgess Meredith, and he's like, and this is it, the cuffling and talking. When did he get his cuffling? And why is he giving it to Rocky before he fights Apollo for the second time? He didn't love him then. That wasn't Mick father figure yet. You know, it's like,
that's one of the most hilarious character arcs in film history.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You love father figure Mick by the third one.
Well, of course.
Yeah, absolutely
but
love
the
it.
fact that
Christ,
the end of the first one did not indicate that
they
would
would
ever
ever
talk
talk.
to each other again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But for me, that's why I don't put, although the perfectly realized points you made about the second one, I don't put it below the fifth, because the fifth was just a shit show of all of those things without the acting.
Okay, but there's a watchability. I disagree with you. I actually think if you had to watch the second, the fifth one, at least there's funny parts, unintentionally funny parts in the fifth one. All right, so there might have been another hiccup there in the technology because we're a bunch of fucking cavemen, and but back to it.
Okay.
We're sophisticated cavemen.
Wearing tuxedos, we are. But so the fifth one, this is another problem when you think about that the second one is a horrible carbon copy of the first one. The fifth one at least had a compelling story. It did. It had a compelling story, right? He lost all his money, and he's trying to adjust to the fact that he's no longer who he was. The second one was just the first one. So that's one problem, right?
Yeah, but unless you want to continue to make your point.
I don't have a point.
I was just gonna say that the fifth one did the exact same thing, though.
What is that?
They were all dressed as they were remaking the first one again, and it was a less enjoyable first one than the second one.
No. The plot of the fifth one was not the plot of the first one.
But the idea, they went back to wearing the same clothes. Him and
that's not
Paulie, they're both back in the hood. Rocky's bouncing a little ball. I mean, it's like they went all the way to fuck back. Although, no, let me correct. The ball thing didn't start actually until the second one, right?
No, he was doing it.
He was doing it in the first one?
Yeah, do you remember?
No.
Let me do the figure in Rocky. Hey, let me do the figure. And
Of
he
course,
walked away
of
bouncing.
course.
Great kid.
And if Joe Spinell, the man who played Gazzo, was alive, he would have been in the fifth one.
Oh, but that reminds me of how terrible the second one was. Right?
I understand.
In the again, when we're talking about sequelitis, Joe Spinell says once, right? For one, he shouldn't have been in the second one if they were being serious about it. The fact that Joe Spinell, that character, that Gazzo was in the second one at all was ludicrous. He was supposed to leave that world behind.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Then everyone loved and remembers the scene at the end of the first one where he's saying, "Go for it, Rock." But it's very mild, and he just says it. He says it at the end of the second one. It's like a child wrote it. Have him do it again, but have him do it really loud and enthusiastic this time. That's I don't know if that's immature writing. That's irresponsible writing. I mean, that's just.
I was going to say that same exact thing.
Irresponsible.
With
Yeah,
Gonzo.
I mean-
Yeah. With Gonzo.
Yeah, and then there was the scene with Gonzo. I mean, that was not
Gonzo showed up.
right. So, do you see what I'm saying? So, you're talking about character traits had returned from
and the way they dressed.
that's character traits.
That's not your character.
That's
I thought you meant character as far as a person's character
No,
traits.
I
Okay,
would
no.
think in
I don't know
writing.
why I
Oh,
went-
maybe
yeah,
you're right.
yeah.
I would think that's wardrobe.
Yeah,
But
and
I would
suddenly
think
Paulie,
that wardrobe was a part of the character trait. Do you see what I mean? In the
Oh
story.
no, absolutely. As I said, I thought you meant traits as a person, your character traits, not
No.
not a character trait. That's
Right.
why I said no, it's not.
Right. So shut up. You don't know what he's talking about. No. So do you see what I'm saying? You're mentioning that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the plot of the film.
Yes.
The plot of the film of the second one is the exact plot of the first one. The plot of the fifth one is not the plot of the first one. It's not. It's not the same plot.
No, I'm not saying it is.
Okay.
I do agree with that. It's
All
not
right.
the same plot.
But what I'm saying is it's a more compelling plot than the second one because the second one's just the plot from the first one.
Yes.
Okay.
Which they did absolutely nothing with, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Also, but I do agree with you. Yeah, it isn't. As far as the plots go, what would happen to Rocky? Although, as we all know, he never should have gotten super rich to begin with.
Well, this
He
is
fought him once, and then he would have had a nice living. So.
right. This is a fascinating thing. So, the things that were starting to become ludicrous in the second one that he decided to push to its absolute limit of ludicrousity. I don't know. What to, be,
Actually,
actually, I think that's what it is. It's crunchy. That's just crunchy. Became amazing in the third and fourth one, right? He just pushed it to their limits. And he was just like, I'm not going to apologize or even try and keep this in the real world anymore. And then you had some of the greatest action movies ever made. Or as we've always said, the third one was an action movie. The fourth one was a superhero movie. Like, that's pretty much where it went.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay, let's move on to the third one. I think we've said enough about
I think so.
the second one and how terrible it was.
Yes.
We'll get to the fifth one
okay.
in more
Yeah,
detail.
well, all
We'll get
right.
to the fifth one in more detail, but that's my reason on why. And there's more. I can't remember them all, but I was shocked at how boring and ridiculous. Oh, no, there is one more thing. The most I've said this since I was 9. Exactly. No. That you have to go where the story is in a film. It doesn't matter what the expectations are. It doesn't matter if it's a sequel. You have to go where the best story is. Right. Now, I've said this. One of the examples was Superman 4. The story of Superman 4 should have been watching Lex Luthor and his cousin. I know people thought that was ridiculous. Actually, the deleted scenes, you go watching deleted scenes, that's actually where the story was in that movie. It was the most fascinating part of that movie. So you have to go where the story is, no matter how weird it seems. That should have been the fourth Superman, But so go watch the deleted scenes for those listening. Go watch those, and you'll see what I mean. That was an interesting storyline that they chucked. What's the most compelling storyline in the second one?
The most compelling storyline in the second one.
Yeah, it's
The fact that he couldn't box anymore.
no, it's Apollo Creed's. It's Apollo Creed's story. That's by far the more compelling story.
Yeah.
The acting is better. Really?
I really think that Talia Shire and Stallone.
Oh no, you're right. You're right.
They did a wonderful job
you're
of
right.
performing.
You're right. But the material was so ludicrous.
No, I agree with you.
You know,
especially the
him
coma.
not
You
being able
mentioned
to
it
read-
again. The coma. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that must be mentioned again. That was the coma. I guess I'll say for myself, watching the movie, the only time I was interested as an adult was Apollo's storyline. Was watching him struggle with the fact that he lost, that people that thought he threw the fight, watching the interaction between him and Duke.
That was great.
Right.
Great shit.
Right?
Yeah. I agree. I gotta go somewhere. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. I just have such an emotional connection to the second one. I can't say anything bad about it. But I agree with everything you're saying. That's the thing. Not like it was like Mr. Dust was saying. The performances were so great. You kind of, for years until you pointed it out, I was like, yeah, this is a great film. You know what I mean? Then you started pointing stuff, I was like, wow, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think the power of all those actors kind of blinded me to the issues and how it was, just the poor man's version of the first one.
Yeah.
Let's make
the
it
simpleton.
better.
It really was the simpleton's version. If a simpleton had have wrote it,
Yeah.
written it. Oh my God! I'm over here calling people simpleton. I'm saying wrote. Or is it? Anyway.
But I have to point out here that the second one, the end fight of the second one, is what started the bonanza fights that happened in
Very
the other
good.
ones. Because that's still you. Even when I'm like, I want to watch the second one, I'll go right to the end fight and just watch the end fight, and that really set the tone for what happened in Rocky 3 and 4. Some of the best goddamn fights you ever gonna see.
There you got it. Because Duke would add his absolute high, Mr. This is a shout out.
Yes.
This is a shout out to the one, the only. Yes. There's one, the only Tony Burton. Let's take 1 second to talk about Tony Burton. Tony Burton was a Golden Gloves champion. Is that right? Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He also fought several professional fights, had a winning record, and apparently was an excellent chess player and beat on the set of The Shining. Someone said he was in The Shining. Is that accurate? I didn't see it.
He played The Shining.
He played The Shining.
Wow.
Someone said he was in The Shining.
It's been a little while. I
haven't
hope
seen
they're
The
not
Shining since I
confusing
was
him
like 10.
with Scatman Carruthers. I hope they're not confusing him with
That
him.
would be terrible.
That would
yeah.
be terrible because they're not.
No, they said he was a. What did they say he was? I don't remember. But according to them, he was in The Shining. We have to look that up.
Yeah.
I can't.
This is
remember
not
as of
this
right
is
now.
not a straight fact. We have a button for that. You'll know when that happens.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point was that apparently he was actually excellent at his chess as well. as well.
And they showed him playing in Rocky IV.
That's
at some
right,
point.
yeah.
That's interesting.
Oh yeah.
And this also means he could have kicked Carweather's ass
That's true.
at any
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he did several times when I heard.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
In Russia.
Yeah. The it was
We
the
don't have a
preliminary-
fax button, so we're just going to say whatever the hell we
Yeah.
feel like.
Yeah. It was a preliminary bout before they went to Battle World. Because
Wow.
the times were congruent,
Of course.
even if they weren't.
So
I liked
anyway,
them to be.
so
Well, yeah,
this is
everything's a
true.
fact now.
So no, some of that is true. We'll look it up and get back to you on some of it. So that's what I've got to say about. Oh, there is one more thing. There is one more fascinating thing. There's and a few people would know this. I think, not a few people, but the beginning of Rocky. Now, the music in Rocky II, of course, was absolutely incredible.
See,
They,
that was something I wanted to
oh
mention.
yeah,
Gorgeous.
they got Conti back to come up with a whole new theme that was so badass.
Mm-hmm.
And it had that funk sound that they were aching for everything else 70s in that movie, like you pointed out. The funk sound of the music achieved
Yeah.
that at least.
Yeah, Conti.
That's a fuck you funk is what that is.
Exactly, and he did it without. He knew how to incorporate it. He knew its place amongst orchestral music. Also, all of us here are pretty huge boxing fans. So Conti just perfectly put into sound what the gamut of the experience of pugilism. You know what I mean? Of the sweet science, of the experience in the squared circle.
Yeah, when you listen to that theme, it's like he was writing for Joe Frazier.
You
yeah.
read my mind. I got goosebumps right now. Yeah, exactly. That is Fraser Ali 1. Conquest, Bill Conti, Conquest, Rocky 2 soundtrack is Fraser Ali 1.
Yeah. So
Well, I wanted to say, you were talking about Tony Burton at his height. I wanted to get into that in the second one.
yeah.
Oh, man.
No, I mean that
Well,
was,
that was
anyone
a-
that's ever seen the movie knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Stay away from him. I mean,
He was
That's-
weeping.
Get away from it!
Yeah,
Oh
that's-
my
He was
God.
sweating. He was
Still
weeping.
lose it on that. And Creed with the left hand.
you know what I loved? I can't remember if this is the first or the second one. I think it was the second one, but it might have been the first one. When he's telling Apollo to stay away from him because don't. I think it's the second one.
That's the second one.
He's saying, "Stay away from him. Just don't." And Apollo starts arguing with him, and he just agrees with him, and then goes back to the advice. That's such a. It was
Yeah.
so brilliant.
Yeah.
It was such a panicked thing. He's like, "Just you only got one round. Just stay away from him. Don't. No, I'm going for the knockout. Okay. Just stay away from him. Unbelievable. So yes, the pinnacle of the movie was the final fight for so many reasons.
Absolutely.
All right, but there's one more thing about the opening sequence. I've walked the streets of Philadelphia. In the streets of Philadelphia.
Brucey Springsteen. Brucey Springsteen.
Okay.
1990.
So, I understood what they were doing. Of course, this isn't a mistake because most people won't know. Most people aren't from Philadelphia, right? That's just a scientific. That's just a fact, right? So, but he has the ambulance driving both towards and away from City Hall several times throughout the opening sequence. He's switching them up because he wants City Hall in certain shots in a way. But if you follow it through, the ambulance driver has no idea where they're going. Shit! Because at one point he's obviously driving towards City Hall, right?
Yeah.
And then the very next shot he's driving away from City Hall and on the same street, on Chestnut, on Broad Street, passing Chestnut, going south.
Okay.
Right. At one point he's going south. On Broad Street, and the very next shot he's going north on Broad Street towards City Hall because they need City Hall in the shot because it looks good. But I'm watching and I'm going. I just started laughing because I knew what I was looking at.
Yeah.
So I thought that was good. That's not a mistake, but I thought it was interesting.
Well, I think the idea was that Rocky was so punchy that it was catching, and the driver just became punchy by association.
I
contact.
heard that Willie Penn had a cheesesteak for him, but when he got there, it wasn't ready, so he had to kind of like drive.
Yeah,
it.
keep
yeah,
driving
well,
around.
from what most people say in Philadelphia, Willie Penn's got something else for him. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh.
From certain angles, there's something else he got
yes,
for him.
yes,
You
there
know what I'm
is.
saying?
You
Anyway,
ever been in Friends Hospital? There's a picture of it.
okay. Yeah?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So, okay, so we'll move on to the third one now. But before I do that, I wanted to announce to everyone listening that we might have a special guest doing a beer commercial later for us. So keep tuned for that.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. So, moving on to the third one. Chris,
Yes.
Mr. Dust.
I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what's happening.
It's
here.
the male
Understand?
prostitute I've been hanging out with.
Okay, just hanging out with.
Maybe.
Okay.
We'll see where it goes.
Okay.
Um,
Chris sounds
It's Christoph.
shockingly wonderful.
The prostitute is Christoph Schmorgenstein.
Oh, very
I'm
good.
surprised you didn't go with Schmeckel on that one.
That would have been the logical choice.
all right. Moving on to Mr. Dust growing up. I believe the third one was one of your favorites, and I think it's still one of your favorites.
I think out of them, again, like we've set down in the beginning of this, excluding the first one, the third one is my favorite. Yeah.
So would
Although
you-
I think I've watched the fourth one more, which is odd how that goes.
I think everyone has.
Yeah, in the world,
Yeah.
that's a fact. But the third one, the idea of again, Mr. T is so unbelievably charismatic in this performance.
His first.
The fact
role.
that they made him his first film, yes. The fact that they made him, and he says, "I pity the fool" in it, which you don't remember that because it became his thing. I don't hate Balboa. I pity the fool.
I
It's
remember it.
That's
Yeah.
absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
The fact that they could make him such an absolute scary monster of a fighter, but you didn't. Which I think they took some of that out of it. The fourth one, where you didn't really believe Drago was a person.
Well, that's why it's a superhero.
Yeah,
That's
Mr.
the
T was
superhero
more a
movie.
person. The fact that he
Yeah.
could have that argument in the thing, and you don't know where to come from, and old man, I'm coming for him, and then have him in the
yes.
thing sound like a bull had made it with a bear and made Clubber Lang, and his name is Clubber Lang, for God's
Yeah,
sake. It's like
Yeah.
it's so much to sink your goddamn teeth into. It's unbelievable, and of course, father figure Mick comes into the picture. He's just a loving old codger who lives in Rocky's mansion. Wow.
Yeah.
I did want to say, though, the one thing that always threw me about the movie and still does, even more so to this day, is the whole Hulk Hogan thing. I think that whole sequence is just, it's so weird.
It's enjoyable, though.
It is.
It's
It is.
enjoyable,
Yeah.
yeah. What Mick thinks is going on is always confusing. Like, I'm not sure what he thinks is taking place.
Yes.
I-
Because
I don't
he's on
know.
the
Yeah, the whole
heart
thing.
attack and
Right, yeah. Right. I wanted to ask a question. You know a little bit of Mr. T's history, right? You
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is
who are we speaking to here?
this is Modoc. We're talking to
I think it was
Modoc.
Malmut?
It's,
Wasn't
Melmut. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, okay. Mel Schmitz.
Yes.
What is some of his history as a person?
He was a person. He had thoughts and feelings. And he was a wrestler. He was a Greco-Roman wrestler.
Was he really?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're sure about that?
yeah.
You got the button on that one?
No, I
Okay,
don't remember
all
which
right.
button it is.
All right.
But
Truth button is-
We'll
yeah,
start-
I read
Yeah, okay.
that he was a wrestler in, I think, high school, and then he also went into the army where I think I want to say he was a weapons specialist or something like that, or that's what he was training in. But I know he was in the army, and then when he got out is when he became a bodyguard. He was a bodyguard for Joe Frazier. He was a bodyguard for Ernie Shavers. He was a bodyguard for Leon Spinks.
Wow.
He was a dangerous man.
Anyone
Yeah.
that doesn't know, these are some of the baddest mofos to ever be in the sport of boxing.
Yeah,
The squared circle, as it were.
yeah.
So, yeah. So we're talking about a real badass there.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I asked is I knew he had you mentioned he had military service. Right?
Yeah.
That's a certain thing.
Yeah.
That does remind me of something very interesting, harkening back to the first one that we had talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for one, that's very interesting about. Do you remember the scene where Clubber Lang's coming in at the second fight, and they're playing the Marine fight song?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. What were they saying about his character, which is very fascinating. And the reason I'm saying that is when you watch the first one, this is something Stallone did that I don't think a lot of people pick up. I'm not sure if they do. I don't. I'm not sure.
And you didn't for how long?
I didn't write. I didn't for my 41 years. I just picked this up this year.
What is this?
All right. In the first one, there's two major scenes where the camera is on in the foreground. There's something giving you a clue to what you're watching in the background, which is Paulie's behavior. there's a picture sitting on a nightstand or a side, whatever, a thing, a table, of Paulie in full dress military uniform.
When you say it now, I see it. I can't believe I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of a buffoon for never catching that, but the subtlety in which Stallone and I'm sure John Advelson, director of the first one and the fifth one, the subtlety of that they never tell you that he had to have been a Vietnam vet given the time period, he was in Vietnam and that's why they tolerated his behavior.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's remarkable, isn't it?
That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, no, so that makes me think that in the third one, he was doing the same thing. He was trying to give you a clue with the Marine fight song on who Clubber Lang was. Why were they playing that for him?
Yeah. And
So
they
I
had
don't know.
Marines there, didn't they? Guarding?
Yeah, but why?
That's what I'm saying. That adds to the whole thing.
Yes, right. So isn't that fascinating?
That is very fascinating.
Yeah. But there's another thing about the third one I'd like to mention, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Because if it's not, I don't care.
And what else are we here for?
My God.
Okay. I loved the symbolism that started to work its way into the movies. One of them was, the third one was so well written as far as Rocky was a hubris, a king full of hubris. Right? That's what this was about. And it was the fall of the king because of his hubris, because he was, he felt he had everything under control. He was kind of cocky and kind of arrogant, right? And the symbolism made its way, especially into the first fight with Clubber Lang, when, if you remember, of course you remember the gold robe he wore with the stallion on the back.
Yeah.
Gold, the symbolism of a king, right?
Yeah.
Or a ruler, and the stallion, his symbol, his coat of arms, right? They do this. Stallone goes this amazing shot because, for those who don't know, I think you would know that he directed the second, the third, the fourth, and the sixth one.
Yes.
Right. And wrote them all.
Yes.
Right. So there's this amazing shot when Clubber Lang knocks him down for the first time. He's right in the center of the stallion. He's wearing gold shorts with the gold. Yeah.
That's a great fucking shot. Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. When you started talking, I'm like, that's the shot he's going to say.
Yeah. It's this. Here it is. Here's the fallen king, and what hubris will do to you. And this, of course, Eye of the Tiger goes. This hungry warrior comes up and takes you down because, just amazing. Again, there's a
Visceral.
lot of yeah. There's a lot of subtlety in the things that Stallone did. That
On top of the things that were so overtly amazing, like we all of us together, we've known each other a very long time. Especially the start of the third round of the second fight, when Mr. T is saying to him, "I got you, you're mine." Yeah. And then once he realizes, all right, this is on. He sounds exactly like a monster bull. It's like, and then that's so overt, but it's so visceral. It's so powerful.
Well, again, that's why children of all ages, when watching that, were jumping around,
lose
leaping
their
from-
mind. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to pause for just 1 second. We have a beer commercial we need to get to. So here we are.
I'm here to sell you a beer. Hi, you might remember me from such films as Rocky Balboa, Rambo 2, 3, and Rocky Balboa. Choice hops from the mountaintops. And always remember, a lovely beer for me and you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Balboa. Okay, so now we're moving on. I don't know how much time. We probably don't have much time left, so we'll get into the fourth one quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to talk about the sixth one,
Yeah, I think it doesn't get enough talk, especially when they're playing a marathon. When you find it on TBS or whatever, they never play the sixth. They play the second one, which you think is abominable, and the fifth one, which everyone else thinks is abominable, and they never play the sixth. So I think we should give it some mention. I actually thought it was a better film than Rocky V, Rocky II.
I agree with you, and I really like what you said years ago when it first came out. This was the only justifiable sequel to the first one. If you're going to make an interesting sequel to the first one, going 20 years later and saying, Adrian's dead, what is Rocky now? That's the only truly justifiable sequel. Not that we don't love the third and fourth one,
of course.
But they moved into, of course,
Yeah.
sci-fi territory, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it was a well-made movie. Well-made movie.
Yeah, I mean they harken back to some things. Of course, he didn't win at the end. They were playing off of the first one, but the idea of him training in quotations a new fighter, like the best line of the entire movie. You're a crazy old man. You'll get there, and it's like that's everything that movie was saying, and I think it did it well. And there's a lot of you can't tell me I don't have brain damage. It's like wait, I can tell you have brain damage. It's like. I'm old. I'm still relevant. It's like I don't want to see so much of your psyche, Sylvester. But I still liked a lot of things they did. I still don't know how I feel about. I'm sorry. I'm gonna let you talk first. I don't know how they feel about little Marie coming back. The girl, told me, "Fuck you, creepo," or whatever. Screw you, creepo. And he's like, "I'm back and I have kids." And it's like that's a little.
Well, but it's realistic, wasn't it?
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Sly. He had some stellar scenes in that, like when he was talking to Paulie, and God, because the two of them have known each other so long, the actual actors that came across, and they had the chemistry already, even from the first one, and the way they were talking there, but peaked, that scene, he kind of became his therapist over time, Is this a mental disturbance, No. And Rocky, they both accepted their roles. I'm the patient, he's the therapist. You know what I mean? I'm going to be disagreeable about it, and he's going to pull it out of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was great. And the guy who played Tarver's trainer, he went back to see him. That guy was unfucking believable.
That guy was captivating. I fully agree.
So you take that guy's lines along with him telling his son about himself outside of his restaurant, you know what I mean? Which I fucking hated his son in that.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
He was just such a nubbard. Yeah.
I think he was supposed to be a said number.
I guess that was the point. But those lines.
I like that guy as an actor. I thought he was very good in the nubbard role.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
I'm surprised that he actually returned to that role in movies that we're not talking about today, but he returned to the role in Creed 2.
Oh, okay.
And he played his son again.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. What's his name? Velo Parmesan? It was.
Yeah, I think it is.
Velo
I think it's
Parm.
Asiago Allegro.
Thank you, Mr. De Niro.
All right. So it looks like I think we're running short on time at this point on what the extension of
Okay, so we got to get Rocky 4 in. Come on, we got to get Rocky 4 in.
Okay, but what's to be said about Rocky 4?
The foreshadowing in the entire movie, that it was all foreshadowing to the end of the movie, is
foreshadowing to Apollo's death is one of the more chilling things in movies.
Real.
It really is.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
The scene. Go to the moment where what's his name realizes, okay, this is really bad.
Oh, when after the first round, and he's dragging Apollo back over, and he looks over, and Drago smiles and shakes his head. It's
so
absolutely chilling.
Do you remember that?
No. It's chilling.
Because he's like, this is Duke in his full spit. This is supposed to be an exhibition. And they're taking him away. Rocky watches them go by. He looks over.
They have a moment.
At Drago. And he shakes his head at Rocky.
Oh, man.
Like, I'm going to kill him, and then I'm coming for you.
Yeah.
It was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, that's a chilling moment.
Wow.
Of course, but the ludicrousness that any of this is happening,
That they let that
they're
go
good
on.
friends now, that any of this is,
and where Sly, we have to mention this, completely abandoned acting completely for the fourth movie. He didn't act a whit, a word, a moment
A wink?
of that. A wink, thank you. Of that.
there was not a wink of acting by Stallone in that movie.
I'm a fighter.
No.
That's what you said. I'm a fighter.
Yeah.
No, and his standing. He had a problem with wanting to stand a certain way throughout the whole movie. Did you notice that?
You finally realized that in my own brain.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you for verbalizing that. I never realized that was the problem, but it's obviously the problem.
Okay, he was posing. The entire
He's a
movie
poser.
is like he.
Boozer.
The entire movie was like he was on the cover of GQ. He had to stand like
Wow.
that the entire film.
Yeah.
And of course, we have to. I guess we do have to address what disease their child had that he was growing by leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
That
He's Clifford. We love you so much.
He just
how he was 4 in the third one and 12 in the
Yeah,
you know,
it just
or whatever.
made- yeah.
In the fourth, no, he
In
was
the
like
third one, he was a little kid when they went. And
Yeah.
what kind of parents are these two, by the way? I mean, we
Yeah.
got to leave you with this old lady. that
at
we
least
don't
leave
specify who
Duke.
she-
Like I mean,
Something.
somebody's got to be taking care of that kid. The robot, I think, was
the
taking care
robot
of
was
the
taking
kid.
care of him
Yeah.
when they went to Russia. The both of them, both of our parents,
Yeah.
will go to Russia.
Yeah, that was good.
But curing communism is important for Balboa.
I'm glad he
to
did
go
it.
do. Yeah.
Okay, so one last thing.
He's cut, and we got.
Oh yeah, well,
Drago cut. Not only not knocked down, not did it cut
he's
for
cut
the first
for the
time.
first time. He's never been cut, even as a child. He never scraped his knee. Like, nothing has ever
no.
happened to that man.
Ever. It cannot be hurt.
Yeah.
No.
Him knocking out communism. Yes,
And
that's
he
that's,
just
that's
hit,
the way.
He looked at his glove back up at Rocky, and you hear Duke scream, "He's cut!" It was
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Anybody can change. Sorry.
Okay, wait. Before we get to our final recasting, which is we're going to probably do as mostly as we're going to end the show with a recasting of something. Who would win between all the Rocky villains?
See, I knew that this was going to come up, and I was so happy that it did. Drago's beating every single one of them,
Why?
except for Rocky.
Why?
Drago had-
Apparently.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah.
Somehow Rocky wins.
Yeah.
He had the stamina that they showed that Clubber did not have, and he had too much strength to be beaten by him in the first couple rounds. And I think the same could be said for his speed when it came to Apollo. He was far too fast for being that big. And I actually don't like, I know it was supposed to be of the time, I actually don't like that he was being juiced.
Right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
I know that's what they were trying to say, that, Rocky, he would win if it wasn't for cheating,
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
But I think he would take everybody, and then, inexplicably Rocky beats his ass,
All right.
Yeah.
but gets
well,
brain damage, so. Lots of brain damage.
Just all that brain damage.
I don't know.
He's just as brain damaged as he wants to be.
He had fast hands, Drago,
Yes.
but he didn't have a fast head.
He didn't have a fast head, but
But
no
if
one
Clubber
did.
lands on him. You know what I mean? I know Clubber. Clubber. He had it
Yeah.
taken. Of course, Rocky's the X factor in all of this. You know
Yes,
what I
of
mean? He knocked out everybody. They showed a point that Clubber could take a beating in the third one. He'll gas out, but remember him smiling at the guy punching him. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, and to be fair, Drago didn't beat Rocky. Glover did.
Nah, this is true, but at that
He
point
wasn't
in the
really
movie,
Rocky, of course. But
This is
How
just
is he-
bizarre. Creed is over the hill, and Drago hasn't fought anybody. Remember that? Well,
Yeah.
no, the Russian hasn't fought anybody. Is what he
Yeah.
said. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What was his nickname? When? Yeah. What were they?
The Siberian Bull and Death from Above.
Or was it? Is it the Siberian Bull?
I thought so.
I thought it was the Siberian Express.
Siberian Express.
I thought so.
Well, we have no truth here, so we're both right.
Okay.
All right.
I don't know how that works,
I like
but we both. The next one was
What is truth? We want to get biblical, right?
all right. So ending up, what we're gonna do is, since we don't feel we need to
I think
recast.
I'm sorry. I think I interrupted you earlier, Malmwood. I did not mean to do.
Oh
so.
yeah, I just thought we don't know what kind of chin Drago has. I mean, of course, he was taking beating from. They made a point, even though Rocky beat Clubber, they made a point to say that he hit harder than Rocky. So what is that kind of consistent beating gonna do to Drago?
This is true. That is a more realized.
If he
opinion.
knows he can't, if he's just gonna try and kill him in the first couple of rounds.
well, he would kill him to death inside of 3 rounds, I think.
I think so. Kill him just
course.
to death.
'Cause he's gonna crap thunder
if
and
you feel it.
and
Yeah.
and whistle hurricanes and whatnot, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And piss typhoons.
Typhoons.
Piss typhoon.
All right, so we're going to recast Rambo. It's kind of a leap just to the next one. So,
This was actually something about this in the news recently. If someone was to do another one, it was one Quentin Tarantino said that if he was to recast it, he would pick Adam Driver.
I said this.
I know. That's why I'm bringing it up. I just read this 2 days ago.
We may have a fantasy.
Okay.
Adam Driver.
So wait,
everyone's
do you
fantasy.
guys? No, you we'll do three separate ones. Do you have ones to go?
Oh, who we're doing?
Yeah, I've got mine.
We're each gonna do Rambo.
Yeah, recast Rambo. Recast Rambo. I'll do mine while you're thinking about it.
What? Just okay. Go ahead. Yeah.
Just the 4 major characters.
Okay.
So I had Adam Driver as John Rambo, I think that would be
Fantastic.
just the shiznit. I had who the hell did I have as Teasel now? I had Brendan Gleeson as Teasel. I think he would bring something very interesting
I really like Brendan
because he's a large man and he can be very intense and intimidating. I had Kurt Russell as I had Kurt Russell as Galt because I think he would bring kind of a strange glee to his malicious behavior. And as far as Troutman is concerned, I had Bryan Cranston. I think he would be able to deliver those ludicrous lines in a way that made sense, just like Krenna did. So that's my pick for the 4 major characters in recasting Rambo. We could actually do it. I would love if all 4 of those were to be chosen. So
But you're keeping it in the time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wait, what am I talking about? Of course you would. It's the whole fucking point of It's the point. It's the fucking point. You know what I mean?
Okay. We have
Now
Charlie Babbitt is stopping by
okay,
for
yeah.
a second, just to.
Thank you, Charlie.
So that was Dr. Crisis's pick. Now
so-
going on.
Dr. Gracious.
Now, Mr. Dust.
Mr. Dust, for me, I don't know if I have everybody mapped out, but I would like to see putting a little more of a I was in way too much war spin on him. I'd like to see Eric Bana play
Very good.
not Rambo, but Troutman.
Yeah, he's that age.
I'd like
now.
to see I'd like to see him play Troutman again. I think Bana strives on weird, and I
Yeah.
think he played a little more like I'll kill you, Diesel.
Yeah.
I might help him. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Kieran Hines
Yes.
play either. I don't know if he should play. I think I would actually like to see him play Gold. Actually, Kieran
It's
Hines.
too small of a role for him.
He thrives on that, though. Hines.
Yeah.
I think I'm actually drawing kind of a blank on Teasel and Rambo himself.
Yeah.
And so there's a bit of a problem for me. I'd have to think more about it. But those other 2, I think I would really like. So I'm incomplete. Mark me incomplete.
Well, I'll just kind of fill in the ones we had talked about once
What
before.
the hell are you doing?
Forrest Whitaker as Teasel.
Okay.
And we talked about Forrest Whitaker's Teasel, and there's a man. Oh, Christian Bale, as he would bring a very interesting thing to John Rambo.
Street's a little old now, isn't he?
Yeah, I guess you're right.
This guy I said is old because I agree. Adam
can go to hell.
Driver. Adam Driver is perfect.
Yeah.
I had to think a little more. See if there's anyone that would match it. I would like to see this. I don't know if you guys are going to be on board with this. Of course, he's older. Doesn't make too much sense. But I would like to see Keanu Reeves do John Rambo.
Very
John J.
interesting.
Rambo,
Very
you know.
interesting, yes.
Just the beaten down,
the
you know
John
what I mean?
Wick kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just beaten down. Yeah, you
Yeah.
know. What? No, I'm thinking the only other person I had was Troutman. 2 choices. One was stealing from you, but for a different person. Kurt Russell as Troutman, I think would be awesome. But if not him, Daniel Day-Lewis, even though he's like 100 years old, he would just bring a funf to it all.
He's
you know what I
I
mean?
think he's definitely got the height over anyone else we picked. He's what? 6'2", 6'3".
I don't know. Is he?
I found out he was tall when he played Lincoln. He's actually a tall guy. I think he's 6'2".
Wow.
All right. Well, thank you very much for visiting. We will see you next time. Looks like the pizza's here. Thanks for coming by. So what was that thing we were talking about?
Well,
Was it Burgle Cut again?
yeah, we did mention
Yeah.
Burgle Cut again. Yeah. I just don't think that he would lose against Frodo.
No, you said.